I know of this one, but apparently it's a list of multiple things, so let's see.
Is a tricky thing to get right. Unlike art in a museum, which people deliberately pay to see, public art is often not deliberately paid for by the public and is usually constructed in high traffic areas where you're gonna see it every day on your way to work. So if you're an artist being commissioned to make a public piece of art, you'd better get it right or else the entire city's gonna hate you, and random people on the internet with no artistic abilities at all are gonna make fun of your life's
I never thought of it like that.
work. So without further ado, here are 10 public art installations that went horribly wrong. Number 10. Traveling Light. Our journey begins in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where just off an overpass you can find this big blue thing right here.
Fuck is this?
Day
Wait, it has
you can find this.
It has street lights on top. Aren't they way too high? This thing looks ginormous. Aren't they way too high up? What's the point?
Big blue thing right here. Designed by the Ingjezi Day Art Collective, Traveling Light is a big blue steel ring with a traffic light stuck on top of it. It measures about 55 feet tall and across and boasts a whopping 2.3 stars on Google reviews. Yeah, when this thing was first installed, the people of Calgary were not super happy. Not only because the art here is abstract and odd, but mostly because the art here cost $471,000 in taxpayer money and public funding.
Bro, what the fuck? Why do they... Why? I hate it's not standard. Why would the city pay this amount of money for this piece of shit? Like, seriously. Public art goes one of three ways: interesting, annoying, or just a massive waste due to it being completely random. I feel like this is the last one. Money laundering for real. It looks like a giant hula hoop.
Calgary's got a tricky history with public art, mostly because of how much money is sunk into it. In fact, they even have legislation that requires any public construction project under $50 million to set aside
They don't the government. I mean the government.
1% of its budget to public art, leading to a bit of a surplus of controversial sculptures popping up around the city. Traveling Light in particular was so controversial, even the mayor called it awful, as the art was approved right before he could enter office. Eventually, the people had had enough of this madness, and the government officials spoke up about the...
It's just randomly on the side too. What is this? It's so random. I want to murder someone, please don't. At least if it was like, I don't know, in the middle of the street or something, you know, like you would drive past it or maybe even through it or something, you know. Then it would at least offer some kind of experience, some kind of value. But as is it just like randomly on the side, what is this?
Absurdness of the big blue ring, and in 2023, the city council hosted an emergency meeting where they approved the construction of a second traveling light ring.
There is no way. Are you serious? There is no way.
It's to be placed somewhere else in the city, but to my knowledge, it has yet to actually be funded. So, I mean, well, we'll just have to wait and see. And in the meantime,
I mean, this video was 5 months ago, okay. I mean, there's still time to fund it. Reminds me of an abstract statue. 1 second, let me rip this off. In front of the government building in my hometown, it looks like an upended rusty metal boat. I think it makes their city or town more interesting, but in reality it's just a massive waste of money because it could be put to something useful or to something that looks good. You know, I don't dislike the idea of spending money for art to make your city prettier. 431,000, yeah, sure, do it. But do it for something that actually offers some kind of value, looks good in any way, and not this. What is this?
just thank goodness that most of us don't live in Calgary. Number 9, Morning Sun. We're traveling down south to the wealthy city of Carmel, Indiana. We're in the middle of a round...
What money they could have bought a house for a homeless? Yeah, but this is America. They don't give a fuck about homeless.
about, you can find whatever this is supposed to be. Created by sculptor Brad Howe, Morning Sun is a abstract piece made from steel and urethane resin. It measures 16 feet tall and features a red and white.
Okay, you know what? I don't inherently hate it. I just want to know how much it costs. Because I might hate it.
Body topped with a interpretive, spiky ball looking thing. When it was erected in the beginning of 2021, it was compared mostly to
I was also erected in the beginning of 2021 at some point. Probably. Many times, actually.
a COVID-19 virus, while others saw it as a big, fat, round, hairy, kiwi fruit, of course. Which makes no sense because kiwis aren't even grown in Indiana. Actually, a kiwi is just what I see. Most people just call the statue Harry Ball. Costing a modest $209,000, Morning Sun is just one of 17 sculptures.
209 is insane.
Costing a modest 200.
Seriously, how does this cost 209,000? Can anyone explain this to me? Like, seriously. Like, this was funded by the city, right? The city owns that land. It's not like they had to buy the land. Metal structure and resin coating. It's money laundering, 100%. Yeah. It was insane. Expensive, and then you need to pay the crew to put it up. Bro, how much does it cost to put it up? This is maybe like a couple hours of work. Putting this up costs maybe like $500 at most. To actually put it up. Couple hours with a couple people. Okay, let it be 1,000, 2,000. Nowhere near 209,000. That's how much the artist charged them for it. Yeah, exactly. The artist probably spent like a couple of thousand on this, I don't know. Let it even be a couple of tens of thousands, yeah, sure. But 209 is insane.
$9,000, Morning Sun is just one of 17 sculptures that have been built in Carmel roundabouts, together costing over.
But that one, this one looks pretty. I like this one.
Sculptures that have been built in Carmel roundabouts, together.
And this one, I mean, I don't think it's very good looking, but I also don't mind it too much. It's there. I don't care.
Costing over $5 million in taxpayer dollars, but despite.
But that's the total of all the pieces, right? And this one also looks really pretty. I really like this one too.
Tags, none of these sculptures really faced any backlash. Besides this one, not only was it expensive and not super appealing to most, but it was constructed right outside of a brand new luxury apartment complex. In fact, a close friend of mine actually lived in one of these street view units at the time it was constructed, and it had a perfect view of the sculpture. Here you're seeing some of my own boots on the ground coverage. Facing scrutiny,
it's so huge as well. Holy shit, it looks so much smaller. I thought it was like half this size. It's so huge as well. Why would you?
Should stay or not. And in late 2022, at the cost of an additional $50,000, the sculpture was eventually moved to a different roundabout 2 miles north, where it sits closer to 2 roundabouts that also feature some of Brad Howe's sculptures. Number 8, Talus Dome.
5 mil. Yeah, 5 mil is the whole building. But again, first up, there's America. Secondly, 5 mil collectively, that's like over the years it just accumulated. That's different, you know, if you spend like your 2, 3, 4, 500,000 at a time, that's different than spending 5 mil at once, right?
We're moving back to Alberta, Canada, this time to the city of Edmonton.
Oh wait, the first one was in Canada!
To put a $600,000 public art piece than the side of a busy highway, built by...
Okay, look. I actually kind of like this. I actually kind of fuck with this. But why?
$100,000 public art piece than the side of a...
Why on the side of a busy high... What it... Huh? I hate... I hate government so much.
busy highway. Built by Ball Noga's studio in 2011, Talus Dome is a welded pile of nearly 1,000 stainless steel spheres. This sculpture has been mocked constantly throughout its 14-year existence. It's of course scrutinized for its expensive construction cost, but also for the fact that no one seems to know what it's supposed to be. Some people think it's a stack of marbles, while others see a giant pile of rabbit droppings that have been spray painted, as if everything in Edmonton needs to be chrome. In reality, Talus Dome derives its name from talus slopes, which are a geological formation. They are these piles of eroded rock that used to exist in the same spot as the sculpture before the highway was constructed here. It's surprising that this sculpture itself hasn't been eroded away by vandals, because it has been vandalized on 3 separate occasions so far with varying degrees of damage. But probably the best story surrounding the Talus Dome occurred in 2023 when a full-grown 26-year-old man tried to climb the Talus Dome, slipped in between the spheres, and became trapped inside.
Some dude is stuck inside the Talus balls. Look at this.
It's gotta be a fate worse than death, being stuck in the balls like that one scene from The Incredibles, but luckily the fire department was called and the man was saved. And promptly fined $5,000 in criminal negligence charges, in addition to the cost to repair the sculpture from the damage caused by the rescue. And I have a feeling that that wasn't cheap either. Number 7. Tilted Arc. We're ping-ponging back to the States, this time to New York City, and the year...
I feel like that's gonna be a hazard when the sun hits it just right. Actually, yeah, could be, honestly. The location is horrendous.
Of 1981, when this massive sculpture was constructed right in the middle of the busy Foley Federal Plaza, created by...
What the fuck?
artist Richard Serra. Tilted Arc at
I swear suits are some of the dumbest people on the planet.
first looks like a giant sheet of rust-covered steel. And that's exactly what it is. This somewhat inconveniently placed sculpture measured 12 feet tall and 2.5 inches thick. And 120 feet long, which made it long enough to cause a lot of outrage among pedestrians. With a construction cost of $175,000, about $600,000 in today's money, the Tilted Arc was seen as an expensive eyesore and a massive inconvenience to the large plaza. Locals claim the sculpture made the plaza feel much more cold and closed off than it used to. It supposedly made the location feel less social and heavily impeded foot traffic, as people had to make their long way around it to navigate across the plaza. Many discussions were had and trials were held, with folks lobbying to have the sculpture removed. However, Richard Serra, along with many art lovers, all shamed those who wanted to take it down. They particularly shamed the government, as it was the government who commissioned Serra to build the Arc in the first place, and the Arc was promised to be a permanent display. And because it was so large and heavy, to remove it would mean destroying it. It was eventually ruled that because the art
Oh no, destroying a slab of rusty metal. Oh no.
was funded by the government, it was thus owned by the government, and it was the government's decision to destroy it 8 years after its construction.
Finally.
Yes, to the joy of many, but to the dismay of many others, including Richard Serra. And although Serra just recently passed away in 2024, many of his works and sculptures still exist. Many very similar to, but much less controversial than, his Tilted Arc. Number 6. The Embrace.
Bro got mad that a giant slab of iron that completely cut off a popular public place. Oh, fuck off.
Coast, but moving to Boston, Massachusetts, where in 2023, this massive bronze sculpture was erected in the Boston Commons. The sculpture depicts the hugging arms of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife, Coretta Scott King. It is based off of this famous photo of Dr. King shortly after receiving the Nobel.
I love the idea behind it, but it just looks like shit. Like, I have no idea what it's supposed, like, looking at it, like, it looks well made, like, the hands and all well defined, but I have no idea what it's supposed to be. Like, if you don't know the history, there is no way for you to know what it really is. Yeah, okay, I can see, like, some kind of hug here, but, like, it's well made, but, it's a little too abstract for my liking. Let's put it like this. I was a little harsh saying it looks like shit. It doesn't, but it's too abstract for my liking.
And his wife, Coretta Scott King. It is based off of this famous photo of Dr. King shortly after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. The statue measures 25 feet wide and 20 feet tall and is meant to be a monument to Dr. King's legacy as a leader in the civil rights movement. So, what seems to be the problem here? The sculpture doesn't seem controversial, and although it cost about $10 million to build,
Holy.
it was largely funded through a non-profit organization, not through the government. Well, the thing is, when you actually view the sculpture from the ground in the round, it's not really easy to tell what it is. In fact, because the sculpture features no faces or obvious hints as to what it's supposed to represent, many people who saw the sculpture for the first time saw a variety of different things from different angles.
It's not the missing heads that's the atrocity, although people glam onto that. It's a stump that looks like a penis.
Yes, from many angles, the sculpture looks rather phallic, especially from this one. The controversy behind the sculpture spread around the world, with many harsh comments directed towards the city for approving such an interpretive, abstract-ish piece of art. And the artist himself, Hank Willis Thomas, gained quite a bit of scrutiny, but luckily he didn't seem too bothered and put down by the harsh comments.
When you put art in the world, you can't control what people see. You know, I think about the Rorschach test, the ink blot test, you know?
Nowadays, the sculpture isn't too much of a problem, as most people know what it's supposed to be by this point, and most people can appreciate what it represents. But it is still common for some first-time passerbys to get a little confused at what they're looking at.
Yeah, again, it's just too abstract for me.
Number 5.
I'll go wash my hands.
The Caja Madrid obelisk. And we're finally escaping North America to Madrid, Spain, where in this big honkin' roundabout, you can find a big honkin' bronze spike. Built in 2009 and designed by architect Santiago Calatrava, this structure was supposed to be a grand landmark of Madrid dedicated to the city's 300th anniversary. The tall spike is clad in 462 bronze strips that move and flow, giving the sculpture a very organic look. The controversy behind this piece actually doesn't come from its appearance, but rather its conception. In the original plans, the spike was supposed to reach a height of 120 meters, but the land it sits on is undermined by 3 major metro lines. This meant the ground was much too hollow to support the massive weight of a 120-meter bronze spike, so they had to shrink the project down to only 92 meters. The project also was not very cheap, costing an estimated 14 million euros to build, which was much more than what was anticipated even before the project was shrunk. Luckily to the taxpayers of Madrid, the obelisk was a donation to the city by a large bank firm. Unluckily for the
I love the movement. When it just stands like that, just like this pillar, I'm not a fan, but like with the movements, I like it.
Taxpayers, once the construction cost was initially increased, the bank requested the city to donate a large lump sum of cash to help support the construction of the city's own gift. Luckily for the taxpayers of the city was able to refuse this request, and the bank was able to cough up enough money to finish their own project. Unluckily for the city, once it was finished and the sculpture was powered on, the cost to maintain the heavy hydraulic system that moved all the bronze ribbons went on to exceed 6,000 euros per day. This money was all coming from taxpayer dollars, and after only 1 month of operation, the hydraulics were turned off and the sculpture has remained still ever since. Contrary to the obelisk,
but if it's still at its like peak like position, you know, just like kind of spiky looking ish, you know, kind of like this, that looks sick. I like this.
Its initial goal of being a major landmark for Spain meant to even match the significance of the likes of Paris's Eiffel Tower. The Caja Madrid obelisk now just kind of stands as a landmark for horrible city planning. Number 4, the orbit. This one's a little less easy to draw. We're taking a short flight from Madrid to London, where it's pretty hard to miss this massive twisted steel sculpture. Costing a whopping 24 million British pounds, this project was built and luckily largely privately funded by the ArcelorMittal steel manufacturer. The orbit was originally constructed for the 2012 Summer Olympic Games and was to serve as a permanent monument to the event. The sculpture measures 115 meters tall and is comprised largely of red tubular steel that twists and winds all around a central trunk. Unlike most art, this sculpture is not just for show, as in the central trunk is an elevator that takes visitors up to a large observation deck.
That's $2.2 million a year just to maintain the one in Madrid. Yeah, that's insane.
You can also get your steps in by taking the massive spiral staircase that winds around the central trunk. The orbit was designed by artist Anish Kapoor, who's most famous for his Cloud Gate sculpture in Chicago. Kapoor is known for making very abstract art, and because the orbit was no exception, when it was finally unveiled to the world, most people were a bit confused.
Yeah, but the other ones at least look like chromy, clean, you know, mirrory. This just looks like old abandoned railway stuff.
As to what it was supposed to be.
Is it meant to be like a torch or something? I don't even know what it meant to be. It looks weird.
Some people saw a giant mutilated roller coaster, while others thought it looked like an abstract Olympic torch. But most people just had no idea what they were looking at. Some locals even thought the structure was still under construction when it was revealed, because they thought it just looked like a bunch of scaffolding. Since the Olympics are a fairly large and globally televised event, spitballs came flying from critics across the globe.
Or something from an abandoned amusement park, yeah. Why not make it solar powered? I feel like that would need a lot of solar panels. But it would look cool.
With people pretty disappointed at what they were left to look at. But it was London locals who were most concerned since, as mentioned, this was meant to be a permanent installation to the city. Moreover, if you wanted to go inside the sculpture up to the observation deck, it cost a whopping £15 to do so. And that's in 2012. Even Anish Kapoor himself was pretty upset to learn how much was being charged.
So for the 3 weeks of the Olympics, the price I think is ridiculously high.
After the Olympics, the orbit stood normal for 4 years until in 2016, the city decided they wanted to add some fun to the sculpture and commissioned another artist to design a massive 178-meter slide to the tower. Okay, now we're talking. This helped the orbit kind of ascend from the level of an abstract sculpture to a genuine tourist attraction.
Okay,
the
that's
slide
nice.
was met with positive feedback, and today, the prices to visit are even lower than they once were when the tower first opened, now at
And now I want to actually go there and like slide. That looks like an amazing slide. I want to go there. Has anyone ever been there? Lenonimus, have you been there? Have you been on the slide?
just £7 to go up into the observation deck and £14 to also go down the slide. And a £5 booking fee for every order. Number 3.
No, I want to go there.
And that's enough of Europe because we're heading back to New York City, where on the Hudson Yards Public Square in Manhattan, this massive sculpture was constructed and opened in 2019. The vessel was designed by designer Thomas Tetherwick.
I don't hate this one. This one is fine.
And like Anish Kapoor's Orbit, the vessel is an interactive sculpture. It is made out of carbon steel, which probably makes it one of the heaviest sculptures on the list. It's also pretty tall, measuring at 150 feet in height.
Not too far from what I live.
154 flights of stairs with 80 landings that kind of act as small observation decks. Fortunately, the vessel was privately funded by a large real estate developer because the final construction cost was estimated to be between $150 to $200 million, which makes it the most costly piece of art on our list. So then what makes the vessel so problematic? And why is privately funded in quotation marks? Well, when it was first constructed, Hudson Yards, where the sculpture sits, claimed all ownership of any photos taken of the sculpture. This did not go over very well with the public, mainly because this claim is ridiculous and almost impossible to enforce, but also because at the time the vessel was constructed, nearly $4.5 billion in taxpayer money had been sunken into the Hudson Yards area. And who is one of the main real estate developers in Hudson Yards? The same developer that paid for the construction of the vessel. Ooh, yeah, so this was not a very good look for the developer or the Hudson Yards as a location, and they promptly retracted their strict photo policy. Aside from this hubbub, the actual appearance of the piece was also a little controversial. Some criticized the piece for being a useless staircase to nowhere, and many think it just looks like a giant shawarma. The vessel has also been slated as not being very wheelchair accessible. In fact, most staircases aren't, according to my research. Although it does feature a single glass elevator that can take guests up to the top observation deck, it's a pretty slow and low capacity ride for an area as busy as New York City. And if you want to go to the top level of the structure today, you can't because it is closed off to the public.
Why?
Well, that's why.
Oh,
within just 18 months of opening, 3 people had taken their own lives by leaping over the glass barriers surrounding the staircase of the vessel. This forced the closure of the structure until a solution to the problem was found and put in place in the form of a net that surrounds all accessible areas. The top level remained closed, as netting could not be put around the whole area. This netting proved not to be a very effective solution, as when the vessel was reopened, a 14-year-old boy managed to bypass the safety nets and another life was lost. After this, the vessel remained closed for over 3 years until it was finally reopened in October of 2024 with much taller steel mesh nets now in place to make further incidents hopefully impossible.
Hopefully.
I don't know why my videos always take a dark turn around the number 3 mark, but we're done with number 3, so let's move on.
Damn, that's
Number 2, the portal.
shit.
Now this one's a sort of two-parter, with point A
Wait, I think I've heard of
conveniently
this
in New
one.
York City and point B across the globe in Dublin, Ireland. Created by artist Benedictus Guillis, the portal is basically a giant public webcam that displays live feeds
Yeah, I've
between
heard of
two
this
city
one.
streets and allows people to interact
But then
with
I
each other
think people started showing like bad stuff because people are people after all.
from across the world. One side of the portal was placed on a busy pedestrian street in Manhattan, and the other in a comparative spot in central Dublin. The New York to Dublin portal was actually a successor to an already existing portal that the artist had already built, connecting the cities of Vilnius, Lithuania, and Lublin, Poland. So if the first portal worked so well, then what could go wrong with a portal between New York City and Dublin?
Because New York City is fucking unhinged.
Now, passerbys in both countries actually loved their new art installation and begun sharing their love for each other through the portal. But of course, before very much time, there were a few whippersnappers that stepped in and just had to ruin the fun for everyone. Both sides of the portal had people exposing themselves to the poor, unsuspecting souls across the world. You had everything from an OnlyFans model exposing herself to Dubliners flashing photos of 9/11 to New York. You know, just the expected stuff. And as a result of all this, the portal did not even make it 1 week until it had to be shut down. It was
I didn't
turned
know it
off
was
for
that
just
quick.
6 days, and in that time, a fence barrier was installed around the portals, and new technology was implemented that would cause the camera feed to blur if someone got too close. This prevented more people from showing offensive photos from their phones. The portal still actually exists today, but not as such. The Dublin installation still exists, but the New York side was moved to Philadelphia just 3 months after it was turned back on. The portals still operate and have even had another installation pop up in Piauí, Brazil. This makes 5 portals in total that still stand strong, despite
Wait, why 5? Where does the Brazil one lead?
their occasional and unfortunate abuse. Number 1, the tree.
I know this one.
Our
This
artistic
was
journey.
wild that this is, well, I guess I knew of the portal, but I know of the tree.
It comes to an end in Paris, France, where in October of 2014, for a brief time, if you were lucky, you could have been walking around the streets of Paris and could have seen this. It is a giant 24-meter tall inflatable structure that is supposed to look like a giant Christmas tree. And boy does it look like a Christmas tree and absolutely nothing else, just giving that tree at Rockefeller Center a run for its money. But apparently, most of the public
It is wild. Imagine convincing the government or whatever behind one of the biggest, most touristy cities in the world to install an art piece and that this looks like a tree. This dude is the biggest troll on the planet.
did see something else other than a Christmas tree. I can't imagine what. And criticism came flying right away. In fact, the backlash for this piece was so swift that as it was being installed and publicly inflated for the first time, the tree's artist, Paul McCarthy, was brutally attacked and beaten by a passerby.
Okay,
Paul
that's not
McCarthy was
cool.
already
That's people are so fucking dumb.
known for creating controversial pieces in the Christmas spirit, most notably this one. Just keep you
Yeah, I remember. I looked him up, and I wanted to say he also had like this Christmas man. What's his name? the guy Santa. He also had. I think there was also another one with Santa that was actually colored.
in your imagination as to why this one is controversial as well. Once the installation was complete, photos of the phallic inflatable spread like wildfire, and many were pretty furious that this now stood as a massive, unavoidable landmark in the city. It only took about a week until a group of vandals was bold enough to take action and destroyed the entire massive sculpture by hand, which just consisted of cutting power to the blowers that kept the thing inflated. The tree could have been easily re-inflated so as to actually make it to Christmas, but Paul McCarthy himself actually decided against it, and it was permanently removed from the streets of Paris. So in the end, most of the city and the world hated the sculpture. Not everyone, some people wanted it to stay, but most people hated it, and it was quickly removed with consent from the artist.
I mean,
So did
Satan
anything
calls.
good come of the tree? Well, a couple local specialty shops did see a massive increase in sales of one particular item. What were they called? Oh yeah, butt plug. So there's my list here. If I sound a little different, it's because I've contracted the
I'll
flu.
take it. I'm sure I can make it fit somewhere. Okay, let's get back to the game.